Some of the things that people have fed back to us is that it's like a big hug. You come in and you feel like somebody's looking after you and the whole you. So it's not just the cancer part, it's all the other bits and pieces that go with it. And we have a drop-in service, so people can drop in whenever they want to. Obviously our appointments are set times and people can come in and see a nurse at a set time. But it's so comfortable that people will often just drop in. You know, they might get up in the morning having a really rubbish day and think, oh, I'm just going to pop up to the Bracken, have a cuppa and a chat with somebody, and it does them the world of good. Yeah. I saw this job advertised and I love having a job that has contact with people. I read the job description, I thought, actually, I'd really like that job. So I came for an informal visit, not quite sure what to expect, you know, wondering whether it was going to be people very emotional and a bit apprehensive. And I came and I just thought, oh, I'd love to work there. So I was successful at the interview and I got the job and I loved every minute of it. Sounds a strange thing to say, I'm sure, for, you know, a cancer support centre, but it's very humbling and the people here are so positive. It doesn't matter what part of the journey they're on. You don't often see people very upset here. They just come in and appreciate what support they get and go away with a smile on their face. It's great. We're here to support everybody that's affected by cancer. It is a free service. I think it's a really lovely establishment and we've got hubs in the community as well. So Llanidloes, Knighton and Llanwrtyd, we run a hub once or twice a month for people to access those services and not have those travel costs of coming into the centre. So that's an ongoing project and we're looking to open another hub in Newtown and possibly move more towards Brecon as well. Yeah, trying to make it as non-clinical as possible and relaxing, you know, sort of coming into your front room at home or something is the idea, that you feel comfortable enough to just relax when you come in and not be on call for anything. I think one of the important things is that people feel they have the opportunity to be listened to, and that isn't in any way negative towards the NHS. They just haven't got the resources for somebody to come in and sit for an hour or 2 hours and just talk through all of the emotions they're going through, and not just them as the individual patient, but their family, or if they're in a caring, responsible role. And similarly for bereaved, it's really important that it's a non-judgmental environment. They can say whatever they feel is on their mind and they'll get signposted to somewhere else if it's appropriate, or we'll provide them with the support that they need. But when they come in here, I mean, it's all very confidential, so the nurses know, oh, that person's a patient, that person's a carer. For people like myself and the admin team, we just recognise them as familiar faces who come in and enjoy our company. You know, we don't need to know that level of detail, so everybody gets treated independently. We're not treating somebody who's a patient any different to somebody who's a carer. It's based on them as an individual. Generally speaking, you know, there are days where perhaps a nurse will have a particularly difficult conversation with somebody and will come out and they're comfortable enough to just say, I've really had a difficult conversation, and, you know, we'll give them a hug, or they don't have to go into any detail. It's just enough that they know there's other people around that support them. They obviously get quite attached to people. So we have regular volunteer meetings and make sure that they buddy up with somebody. So if then somebody passes and they're particularly sad, they can ring somebody else who's in a similar situation to them and just have a chat, you know, and share that grief really, which they're going through as well. Well, I think it is about looking after the person as a whole, and their emotional and psychological needs can impact on their physical being, their well-being. And I think it is helping the NHS immensely, because if they weren't coming here, they are quite likely to be knocking on the GP door and saying, I'm really down in the dumps today and I think I need counselling, or whatever it might be. And And often when they come in and they'll speak to a nurse and they may have a bit of a pain here or an ache there, they can get that level of reassurance, or the nurses will say, well, actually, I think you need to go back and see your GP. And it's something that we often hear from patients. They kind of cope while they're on that initial treatment journey, and then they're regularly attending appointments, so they're regularly having reassurance from the clinicians that they're progressing well. And then their treatment stops and they don't have that reassurance anymore, or a need to attend anywhere to just chat through with somebody else who's going through a similar experience. And we've extended it now to people who are going through diagnostic tests. So if someone goes to their GP and they think, just think we need to rule out anything nasty, or whatever terms they might use, because of the length of time people are waiting now in order to have those tests and then get the results, we have opened up our services to those people. So even though they haven't had a confirmed diagnosis, we will support them through that period. And hopefully at the end, everything comes back and it's negative and they go back on their life's journey. But if it isn't, we've already developed a relationship with them that we can then help them on to the next stage. The palliative care nurses will often refer people to us. I mean, their caseloads are huge. So if somebody's fairly stable, they will often refer them here and know that when things change, our nurses will pick up the phone and say, I think perhaps you need to see this patient again now, they're not so well. And similarly, we'll ring the GP up and just have a chat and say, I'm a little bit concerned about this patient. Because as soon as somebody's admitted into our services, with their consent, we send a letter to their GP to let them know, so they know that they're accessing services here. And then we don't have in-depth discussions because it's still very confidential. We're not part of the NHS, so they won't disclose information, but it does allow us to convey that information across with the patient's consent. Every individual has a copy of their assessment, a copy of their care plan, and they can share that with whoever's involved in their care. So it avoids a lot of duplication and somebody else sitting down with them and trying to identify the top 3 or 4 concerns, because it's already been documented. And those are reviewed then on a regular basis, because obviously those needs will change. We get no statutory funding at all. So our income is from legacies. We are fortunate, we get a couple of legacies left for us. Fundraising, grant applications, and they're becoming more challenging because every funder wants a project when what we actually need is help with the running costs. You know, everything's going up, as you alluded to earlier, and they're much more difficult to obtain. We're fortunate, we had a little bit of reserve, and we've used some of that to purchase a shop in town, and we've got our own charity shop, so that's been a massive credit to us. And that brings in about 1/3 of our income at the moment. So again, the community have donated goods and really nice, good quality items. So we're doing really well with the shop. And it has helped tremendously because grants are so much more difficult to come by. And obviously during COVID, we couldn't run fundraising events. And it's taking us a while to get back up to where we were before. But so far, so good. We're still here after 27 years. Yeah, we really hope we don't ever get to the stage where we have to start reducing services. We are on the verge of trying to increase them and build an extension so we could have some respite care beds and ultimately a 24/7 hospice. So that's our plans at the moment, and we've done the consultation. It's certainly been identified as a need in the community, so it's getting the finances together now to do it and make it happen. Well, we already have some who come here and they will say, can you just keep my husband for an hour or two? I just need to go to Tesco, or I just want to pop and have a swim for an hour. So it's giving them that opportunity to, improve their own well-being really and have a little bit of time to themselves. And we'll have to put fairly strict criteria in place. People will need initially anyway to be fairly self-caring because we're not going to have overnight care straight away. So it's about building up slowly, trying to look at the needs of the community and trying to put in place really what we think they need and what they tell us they need. When you sit and chat to somebody in that caring role, it is a 24/7 job. It doesn't go away, and I can only kind of compare it with when I was a young mother with children in, trying to go shopping and manage them to do the shopping. It's a nightmare, and for somebody who's in that caring role to take that person with them as well, it just adds that extra emotion. And so yeah, anything like that we can do to release people for an hour or two or a whole day, then that's the aim really. They can self-refer, they can be referred by a health professional, by a friend, by a family member, and just pick up the phone, don't have to even come in initially. And most people that come in, there's no emphasis on doing any sort of assessment on their first visit. They just come in, have a look around. If they want to access services, yeah, the admission can be done that day, or it might be set up for another day. But we just want to make sure that they're seen by the nurses before they access anything else, to make sure they're fit for purpose, really.